turning a 30 watt KLX450R stator into a stator that now gives 100 watt output. Stay tuned. Okay folks, so today I've had come in a stator from a KLX450R Kawasaki. Don't know what year it is, about 2010 maybe, I don't know. Now these in their standard form only knock out around about 30 watts of power, and what I do with them, I modify them so they can produce a single phase output giving around about 100 watt output of power. In its original form, lighting and charging are on two separate circuits on these in the original form. The lighting runs from the generator, and there's a trickle charge for the battery. Now people are always complaining that the battery very rarely stays charged because there's not enough power from the stator go into the battery. There's two circuits on here, as I say. One circuit is for the lighting, one circuit is for the charging the battery. On these stators we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 poles. It's an unusual stator to have 10 on there. 4 for the ignition, and then on the modification we don't touch that at all, we just leave that as it is. But the charging coils, or the poles with the coils wound on them, are modified, so you've got one AC wire coming in and one AC wire going out, or in out or out in, whichever way you like to put it. So yeah, on the original one we have several, I think 3 coils that do the lighting and only 2 that charge the battery, and it's also grounded within the stator. And on the modification there's no ground at all. All the energy or power or electricity, as you like to call it, goes to the battery rectifier. Then all your electrics on your bike other than the ignition is then powered from your DC 12 volt DC system. So yeah, okay, so as I said, there's 4 coils or 4 poles on here that are wound for the ignition, and you can identify that because the ignition wires have got much finer wire on them, which is those 4 wires there, and they exit on the white and the red wire. So we don't touch those at all, we just leave those as they are. But the other wires, which is the yellow and the blue, and on a ground, fitted on a ground, is for your lighting and charging. So we need to remove all those wires, all the coils of wires on those poles for the lighting and charging. So first of all, the easiest thing to do is to pull back the sheathing and fold the yellow and blue wire back out of the way. So now on, I'll go down in the workshop and then we'll get a bit of a closer view on what else you need to do to it. So head down to the workshop. Right, so here's the stator. We've got the yellow wire there and the blue wire there. Don't disconnect them there. Find the terminals on the opposite side because the actual terminal goes through to the other side. But first of all we need to locate where the earth ground point is, and that is which one it is? It's that one there. So there's a ground point there for the windings under this silicon that they've just kind of covered it over with in the factory. So if we can remove that, you can just about see that terminal there. Just peel that away. But anyway, there's a wire that comes off of that into that first pole. Remember, we don't want to touch these. These are the ignition ones with the finer wire on them. So be careful not to damage any of those, otherwise your ignition won't work if they get damaged. But if you peel the wire back from that ground point, you'll find where the wire goes into that first coil. Do the same on the blue and the yellow. Peel back the silicone and you'll find the wire that goes into the other windings on there. So I'll get those off and then start unwinding it. Okay, so we've removed the silicone off the terminals, which is the yellow and the blue and the ground one here, and you can see where the copper wire comes out to the ground on that final pole there. So if we just cut that, I don't know if you can see it very well, the copper wire comes down to that terminal. We'll cut that just so it gives us a bit of a tail so we can unsolder it easier later on. So I've cut that, just pull that out of the way, and you see that wire is now coming away. So we should be able to unwind that now. Now if you want to make a note of how it comes apart, if you want to put it back to OE spec, I suggest you do that now, is document it. But if you ever get stuck and you want to go back to OE and you forgot to do it, I've got the information on it. So yeah, you start unwinding that. It's about 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, 32, 33, 34, 35, 36, 37, 38, 39, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 48, 49, 50, 51, 52, 53, 54, 55, 56, 57, 58, 59, 60, 61, 62, 63, 64, 65, 66, 67, 68, 69, 70, 71, 72, 73, 74, 75, 77, 78, 79, 80, 81, 82, 83. So that's got around about 83 turns of wire for the OE specification. So now that one was wound anti-clockwise, and this one will be wound clockwise, counterclockwise. So we start unwinding that. Right, I've unwound that one, so this one comes onto this one, and this one's wound counterclockwise again. So we got unwind that one. So that's the third one we're doing now. So take all the wire off that one. So now we've got to the fourth coil. That one goes the other way. Right, so we've got the fourth coil unwound. Can't quite do the fifth one because the wire that comes out goes underneath 2 wires from the coils that go over on the blue. So we'll just snip that. Oops. Snip those 2 wires that go to the blue. Keep them putting it out of the way. So I'll just snip those, pull them out of the way. So now we should be able to unwind the last coil on that one there. Right, so we've unwound that last one. So yes, so that would have been your lighting. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 coils would have been your lighting. And that one coil there is just to charge your battery with, because that goes out as AC to your rectifier that turns it into DC, so it can just charge the battery. So you can understand why the battery doesn't charge very well, because it's only got that one pole charging it. And these other 5 are for your lighting, and which starts on the blue and ends on the ground, which is AC. So we've just got this one coil left, which is your battery one. So we can unwind that one now. which actually started on the yellow and ended on the blue. So we're going to unwind that one now. And these have all got the same, I think almost all the same amount of turns on each of these 6 poles, around about 80 odd turns. I can't know exactly, but I've got it documented. So yeah, there we go, the final one unwound. The charging one is now unwound. So all we've got that needs that one, that one, that one, that one, that one, that one. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 poles there. We need to rewind now. These are the ignition ones. We don't touch those. Just leave them well alone. And there was your ground point there. That wire can be just chopped back out the way because that is no longer going to be used. And get the maybe clippers at the hooked up wire, so we can just chop that off there. And we had the 2 wires connected which came onto the blue, and what I'll do is I'll get a soldering iron on those joints and remove those connections properly. Just be careful not to overheat those, because that is the terminal that goes right through, and the last thing you want to do is it burning the plastic or the insulation and then it starts graining out. And the best thing I find is like a fork on there that's been crimped together and then soldered. If you heat that up by unsoldering, if you put a Stanley blade out straight down through it, opens the legs up and then you can pull the wires out. I won't show that you're doing that, but I think you might be able to work it out. So yeah, I'll just unsolder those and get that cleaned up, and then we get back into the office where I can hand wind it back together with more wire on it. Right, so we got the stator unwound with the wire. The original wire was half mil wire. So what we're going to do now is we are going to put a 0.8mm wire on there, this stuff, and we are going to put I think it's 49 turns of wire on it, on each pole. It's quite a tight squeeze, but I've managed to get 49 turns on there. Right, so okay, I generally start on the yellow wire, so find the terminal on the opposite side of the yellow wire, or the connector just there. Get your 0.8 wire, just hook it over the point there where it goes in. In fact, you'd be better off just putting it through. And feeding it up through there just to give you a little bit. And start on that first one next to the ignition, first ignition winding, and turn that in a clockwise direction. And pull it tight as you can, and count the turns as you go around. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4. So you start to get good layers of wire on it. Right, so that's the first layer of wire put on it, and I managed to get 11 turns of wire on it. So now keep on winding it until you can get 49 turns on it. Right, so we got our first pole wound, 49 turns. You probably might be able to get more than that on it, actually, to be quite honest with you. But anyway, so now that one was wound clockwise. You go to the next pole, and that's going to be wound on there anti-clockwise. And do the same on that. Right, so that's the second one done in an anti-clockwise pattern. So you move on to the third one, which is on a clockwise, and then so forth until you get to the end, and I'll come back when I get to the last one. Okay, we're all wound now, and we've reached the last pole, where the ground was on the when it was originally wound. So we've reached the last one on an anti-clockwise direction, so now we need to obviously get that back to where the blue wire is. So carry on round with it and then meander it around the coils backwards and forwards, keeping them close to the bottom, zigzagging them round, and then it will come back out where the blue connector goes on the opposite side. So it'll come out just there on that wide piece. So now we just snip the wire there. So there we go. We've got where we started the winding on the yellow, which was on that pole there. Zigzagged all the way around, or wound each pole anti-clockwise, clockwise, anti-clockwise, clockwise. Finished on that one, and then zigzagged back round with the wire to come out on here on the connector on the opposite side to the blue. So what we need to do, I'll go back down the workshop, scrape that off, solder it onto there, and then that's the winding done. Keep it tight on there, and that's now turned into a full single phase stator. Okay, so it's all wound now, and the wires are connected up and soldered on and epoxied over on the connectors, or the soldered joints anyway. So now we have got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 poles now wound with 0.8 enamel copper wire with 49 turns on each pole. I've been told it now produces up to 100 watts output, full AC to the regulator rectifier, which then converts it to DC 12 volts, which is for the whole bike now. There is no individual coil on there that operates the headlamp, so all the power now goes to the regulator rectifier battery, and then the battery then operates all the rest of the electrics on the bike. So yeah, it's done now. So what you've got to do now is remove, because now all these 6 coils are now connected via the yellow and blue lead. You need to disconnect them out of that connector, that block connector, and connect them into a supplied, or I supply it anyway, into a terminal block like that. So you've now got a separate connector on there. That now connects onto a short loom, which connects onto there. These yellow wires will now go to a regulator rectifier, wherever I've put that. Here we go. These 2 yellow wires will now go to the 2 yellow wires on the regulator rectifier. The black lead will go to the negative terminal on the battery, and the red lead will go to the positive terminal on the battery. So now everything will operate through that via the wound coils, the wound poles on the stator. You will have to modify the headlight wiring. I believe on that one of those models it's a blue wire that goes to the headlight, which operated direct from the blue wire on the stator. I do supply instructions on that, guide instructions. So you need to do that, modify that, and basically you attach that blue wire directly to the battery via a switch on the handlebar, so you can turn the headlight on and off. So there you go. There's a modified stator for your KLX450R to now give you a 100-watt output, so it'll keep your battery charged up and everything working tickety-boo. That's how you do it. Thanks for watching. Catch you on another video as soon as I get to make one. When I get something a bit, that's when I get another bike in that's a bit unique and not, you know, another generic rewind on something or other. Anyway, yeah, thanks for watching. Catch up on another video sometime. Cheers for now. Ta-da.